Jake Paul will face the two-time world champion, Anthony Joshua.
What the
Ridiculously dangerous.
Extremely
I
dangerous
believe
for
that
Jake
this is
Paul.
happening.
lost his
He
mind.
can't
Then
fight.
you're going to kill
You
him.
go in there thinking you're going to win. That's even more dangerous.
This is something that's woken me up. This fight scares me. Plays in my mind at night. It's hard to sleep. I had two options: run away or say, "You will not stop me."
As the biggest fight of his career draws closer, Jake Paul is no longer training in the shadow of doubt. He's training under the weight of expectation. This is not another step up. This is the step that decides everything. In just days, Jake Paul is set to face Anthony Joshua, a former heavyweight champion whose resume was built long before Paul ever put on gloves. And inside Jake Paul's camp, there's no confusion about what this moment represents. It's not about proving critics wrong anymore. It's about proving that the work was real. The atmosphere inside camp reflects that shift. Gone is the playful edge that once followed Jake early in his boxing journey. What remains is something sharper, quieter, and far more deliberate. Every session runs with purpose. Every drill has intent. There is no wasted movement, no unnecessary noise. Jake Paul arrives early and leaves late. The schedule is unforgiving, stretching from morning conditioning to evening technical sessions. Trainers describe the camp as relentless, not because of chaos, but because of consistency. The same demands are placed on him every day, regardless of fatigue, headlines, or pressure building outside the gym. This is the version of camp reserved for fighters who understand there is no reset button. At this stage, Jake's preparation is about refinement, not reinvention. The foundation has already been laid over years of full-time training. Now the focus is on sharpening the edges, tightening defense, improving foot placement, and maintaining balance under pressure. Pad work comes fast and heavy. Combinations are thrown with compact efficiency, emphasizing clean mechanics over volume. Trainers repeatedly stress discipline. Hands return to guard, chin stays tucked, feet stay under control. Against a heavyweight like Joshua, mistakes don't come with warnings. They come with consequences. Conditioning sessions are brutal by design. Jake's camp has prioritized explosiveness in short bursts, simulating the pace of heavyweight exchanges. High-intensity interval training pushes his cardiovascular limits while preserving power, ensuring he can move with intent even deep into rounds. There's no assumption this fight will end early. Jake is preparing for the possibility that it doesn't. Strength work has been carefully calibrated. The goal isn't bulk, it's functional power. Every lift, every resistance drill is aimed at translating strength into punching force without sacrificing mobility. Against a naturally larger, more experienced heavyweight, efficiency matters as much as raw output. Sparring sessions have become increasingly specific. Partners are chosen to replicate size, reach, and pressure. Coaches demand controlled aggression, not reckless exchanges. Jake is being drilled to stay patient, to read openings, to avoid chasing moments that aren't there. Because against Anthony Joshua, impatience is a mistake you don't recover from. What stands out most inside this camp isn't confidence, it's accountability. Jake listens, he adjusts, he repeats drills without complaint. When mistakes are pointed out, they're corrected immediately. There's no arguing with feedback now, no ego attached to execution. The understanding is clear. This fight will expose anything that's been ignored, and there is nowhere to hide. Emotionally, this camp has stripped Jake down. The motivation isn't fueled by hate or controversy, it's fueled by responsibility. Responsibility to the work he's put in. Responsibility to the people who've stood by his boxing journey. Responsibility to himself. He knows what this fight represents to the sport. He knows what it represents to his critics. And he knows what it represents to his legacy. This isn't a novelty bout. It's a test of whether belief backed by discipline can survive at the highest level. As camp moves into its final days, the intensity doesn't spike, it sharpens. Sessions become shorter, cleaner, more precise. Recovery is prioritized. Every detail is monitored. Weight, hydration, reaction time, nothing is left unchecked. Jake Paul isn't training to shock the world. He's training to be ready for it. Because when the bell rings, excuses disappear, and whatever happens next will be earned. As camp moves deeper into its final phase, the preparation becomes less about conditioning and more about calculation. At this level, effort alone isn't enough. Every decision Jake Paul and his team make now is shaped by one unavoidable reality. Anthony Joshua is bigger, longer, and more experienced against elite heavyweight opposition. That truth dictates everything inside the gym. The strategy being drilled into Jake is built around discipline and timing. There is no talk of reckless pressure or chasing a knockout. Instead, the emphasis is on control. Controlling distance, controlling rhythm, and controlling when exchanges happen. Joshua's reach advantage is treated as the central problem. Jake's footwork sessions are designed to manage space, cutting angles instead of moving straight back, stepping off line after combinations rather than lingering in front of danger. Trainers repeatedly reinforce the same message. Do not give Joshua stationary targets. Defense has become non-negotiable. Jake spends long stretches of camp working almost exclusively on guard positioning, head movement, and recovery after throwing punches. The goal isn't to avoid contact entirely, that's unrealistic at heavyweight, but to minimize clean shots and immediately reset after exchanges. The camp understands something critical. Joshua doesn't need many openings. One mistake can change the entire night. To counter that, Jake's team has leaned heavily into counterpunching drills. Sparring partners are instructed to come forward with controlled aggression, mimicking Joshua's tendency to step in behind straight shots. Jake is trained to stay composed, let punches pass, and respond with short, sharp counters before exiting range. Patience is drilled relentlessly. If Joshua advances, Jake isn't expected to meet him head-on. He's taught to make Joshua work for every step, to force resets, to disrupt rhythm. The objective isn't domination, it's accumulation. Small victories that add up over rounds. Inside the gym, coaches are constantly reminding Jake of one principle. Heavyweight fights are often decided by who panics first, and panic usually comes from exhaustion or frustration. That's why conditioning remains layered into every technical session. Jake is pushed to maintain composure under fatigue, throwing clean combinations late into rounds, defending while tired, responding to pressure without abandoning structure. There's a clear effort to prepare him for adversity. If he's hurt, he must know how to survive. If he's behind, he must know how to adjust. If momentum swings, he must know how to slow the fight down. These are the moments critics claim he's never faced. Camp is built to prove otherwise. The coaching presence inside the gym is firm and demanding. Feedback is constant and unfiltered. Praise is minimal. Corrections are immediate. There's an understanding that this fight will not reward confidence. It will reward execution. Jake's team isn't feeding him illusions. They speak openly about the danger, about Joshua's power, about the consequences of mistakes. There's no shielding him from reality at this stage. The preparation is honest, because anything less would be irresponsible, and Jake accepts it. He doesn't argue the warnings, he absorbs them. That acceptance marks the clearest evolution in his boxing journey. Earlier in his career, belief fueled progress. Now, belief is paired with restraint. Outside the gym, the noise grows louder by the day. Fans debate outcomes. Critics dismiss the matchup. Analysts argue over whether this fight should even happen. Jake is aware of it all, but none of it bleeds into camp. Phones stay off. Conversations stay focused. Distractions are minimized, because this is the phase where overconfidence ruins fighters. Jake's preparation reflects that awareness. There's no bravado inside the gym, no celebration of highlights. just repetition, correction, and recovery. Even rest days are structured. Nutrition is tightly controlled. Sleep is monitored. Recovery sessions are treated with the same seriousness as sparring. Every detail is viewed as an advantage or a vulnerability if ignored. Mentally, Jake is preparing for scrutiny as much as punches. He knows every round will be judged harshly, every exchange analyzed, every moment framed as proof or failure. That understanding shapes how he trains, not to impress, but to survive judgment. This camp is about removing doubt from his own mind before he tries to remove it from anyone else's. As the final days approach, sparring tapers off. Pad work sharpens. Movement becomes lighter. The intensity shifts from volume to precision. The goal now isn't to get better. It's to arrive ready. Jake Paul isn't training to look fearless. He's training to be composed when fear shows up. Because against Anthony Joshua, fear will show up. And how he responds in that moment will define everything. As fight week approaches, the work inside the gym begins to compete with the noise outside of it. The closer the fight gets, the louder the opinions become. For Jake Paul, this stage of preparation is no longer physical. The conditioning is done. The strategy is set. What remains is managing the psychological weight that comes with being the most polarizing figure in the sport. Everywhere he turns, the narrative follows him. To some, he's a disruptor who hasn't earned this moment. To others, he's proof that the sport has changed forever. Inside camp, that contrast is treated as a weapon rather than a distraction. Jake's team understands that pressure doesn't weaken everyone. For certain fighters, it sharpens focus, it forces clarity, it strips away hesitation. The goal now is to keep Jake mentally insulated while allowing the outside hostility to reinforce his sense of purpose. This is not about blocking the noise completely. It's about choosing what to use. Jake has grown accustomed to fighting as the villain. He no longer tries to win approval. In camp meetings, coaches emphasize that boos don't score rounds, opinions don't land punches, and expectations don't change physics. The ring remains the only place that matters. That mindset shapes how he carries himself in these final days. Interviews are brief. Statements are measured. There's a noticeable shift away from provocation and toward restraint. Jake isn't trying to dominate headlines. He's trying to preserve energy, because mental fatigue can be just as dangerous as physical exhaustion. In private, the preparation turns inward. Visualization becomes part of the routine. Jake repeatedly walks through scenarios, being pressed backward, missing shots, taking clean punches, hearing the crowd react. These moments are rehearsed not to create fear, but to remove surprise. Surprise is what breaks fighters. Confidence survives chaos only if it's been tested beforehand. Jake's coaches reinforce one idea relentlessly: the fight will not go exactly as planned. Something will go wrong. A punch will land. Momentum will shift. The crowd will react. What matters is not preventing those moments, but controlling the response to them. That lesson is drilled just as hard as combinations. The final sparring sessions reflect this philosophy. Jake is put into uncomfortable positions on purpose. He's asked to fight off the ropes, to reset under pressure, to continue executing even when fatigue clouds decision-making. There's no panic allowed in the gym. When mistakes happen, they're addressed calmly. No shouting, no dramatics. The message is simple. Chaos is temporary if discipline holds. Outside observers may expect bravado heading into a fight of this magnitude. Instead, what emerges from Jake's camp is restraint. There are no promises of knockouts shouted into cameras. No guarantees. Just quiet certainty. Jake understands something he didn't early in his boxing career. Talking doesn't carry weight into the ring. Preparation does. That understanding has reshaped how he views this moment. This isn't about shocking the world anymore. That narrative is external. Internally, this fight is about control. Control over pace. Control over emotion. Control over decision-making when the pressure peaks. Jake knows he's walking into an environment that won't favor him. The crowd, the commentary, the history, none of it belongs to him. And that's accepted. In fact, it's embraced, because expectation is heavier on the fighter who's supposed to win. As the final days tick down, Training sessions shorten even further. Movements are crisp. The work is clean. The focus is narrow. Recovery becomes paramount. Every ounce of energy is protected. There is no chasing perfection now, only readiness. Jake Paul enters the final stretch of camp, knowing this fight will answer questions no amount of promotion ever could. Questions about legitimacy, about ceiling, about whether belief backed by structure can stand against legacy and experience. He doesn't try to resolve those questions in advance. He prepares to face them when they arrive, because when the bell rings, the debate ends, and whatever happens next will be permanent. As fight night closes in, the rhythm of camp changes completely. The chaos of long sessions gives way to precision. Training windows narrow. Every movement is deliberate. There is no room left for experimentation, only confirmation. Jake Paul's final days of preparation are about preservation. The physical work has already been done. Now the objective is to arrive intact, sharp, and mentally settled. Sessions focus on light movement, reaction timing, and short bursts of explosive work designed to keep the nervous system alert without draining energy. Pad rounds are brief but intense. Combinations are thrown at near-fight speed, then stopped abruptly. Trainers want Jake to feel power without lingering in fatigue. Everything is calibrated to keep his body primed, not taxed. Footwork drills dominate these final sessions. Small adjustments, clean exits, subtle pivots, the type of movements that don't show up in highlight clips but decide whether a fighter takes damage or avoids it. Defense remains the priority. Jake spends long stretches rehearsing scenarios where punches slip through his guard. The emphasis isn't on avoiding contact entirely, it's on recovery, getting hit, resetting, responding intelligently. Heavyweight fights rarely allow perfection. Survival skills matter. As sparring fades out, visualization replaces physical contact. Jake walks through the fight repeatedly. The walk to the ring, the first exchange, the sound of the bell, the feeling of pressure when space disappears. These mental reps aren't about confidence. They're about familiarity. The more familiar the moment becomes, the less power it holds over decision-making. Nutrition tightens. Hydration is monitored carefully. The weight cut is handled conservatively, with the goal of strength retention rather than scale obsession. Jake's team understands that energy loss here would undo months of work. Sleep becomes sacred. Late nights disappear. Recovery sessions are prioritized. Ice baths, stretching, and mobility work fill the gaps between short, sharp workouts. Every signal from Jake's body is watched closely. There's no pushing through pain at this stage. There's too much at stake. Emotionally, Jake grows quieter as fight night approaches. The bravado that once defined his public image fades further into the background. Not because it's gone, but because it's no longer needed. This version of Jake isn't trying to convince anyone. He's preparing to compete. In private conversations, he acknowledges the magnitude of what's coming. He understands the history he's stepping into. He understands the criticism waiting if things go wrong. And he understands the silence that follows if things go right. That awareness doesn't create fear. It creates focus. Jake's team reinforces one final principle repeatedly in these closing days. Control what can be controlled. The opponent, the crowd, the narrative, none of that belongs to him. But his preparation does. His discipline does. His response does. As the final workout concludes, there's no celebration, no speeches, just a quiet acknowledgement that the work is complete. Everything that could be done has been done. Now, the preparation must carry itself into the ring. Jake Paul enters fight week knowing this moment will define how his boxing journey is remembered. Not by how loud it was, but by how real it became. Because once the gloves are on, training ends and truth begins. As fight night arrives, there is nothing left to add. Jake Paul's preparation is complete. The months of work, the controlled intensity, the corrections, the discipline, all of it now belongs to the moment ahead. There are no late adjustments, no last-minute breakthroughs, only trust in what has been built. The gym falls quiet. Training stops. What remains is clarity. Jake understands exactly what he's walking into. He knows the size difference. He knows the experience gap. He knows the judgment waiting on the other side of the bell. None of it surprises him. That's the point of the camp. Preparation doesn't eliminate danger, it makes it familiar. As he moves toward fight night, there is no need for theatrics. The work has already spoken. Every session was designed to answer one question: can discipline close the distance between belief and reality? Soon, there will be no more debate, no more projections, no more arguments about whether Jake Paul belongs in this space. There will only be rounds, seconds, and decisions made under pressure. And when the bell finally rings, the preparation ends where it always does, alone, in the ring, with nowhere left to hide. That's where Jake Paul's camp was always leading him, to the truth.